China is very well known for its many inventions. I'm not talking about things we have today that say made in China. Those things were almost always invented somewhere else and just produced in China. I'm talking about things that showed up in China before any other civilization. We're going to play a little game to learn about some of them. The rules are simple. I will go through a list of 10 different things. Write down the name of the object and then write a C next to it if you think China invented it, or an NC if you think they didn't. Easy, right? Good, here we go. The first is the horse collar. You know, not the actual horse, but the collars used to guide them around. Next, the wheelbarrow. You don't see many wheelbarrows around these days. I used to ride around in one when I was a kid. Man, those were the days. I'd be all like, wee, yay, this is fun, wee. How about paper money? Now, obviously this paper money is from China, but do you think they had it first? Number 4 is cast iron, which is basically molded iron used to make cups, tools, etc. Next, gunpowder. Kaboom. Sixth, paper. I'm not talking about tree bark or animal skins, I mean real paper like we use today. Well, unless you write on animal skins, I guess. You widow. How about the magnetic compass?
That way.
Well, gee, thanks a lot, George. Thanks a lot.
Time for a cup of tea?
Okay, what about tea? Wait, tea? Mr. Roten, are you crazy? How can you invent tea? It's not a machine or something. Man, sometimes I just don't get you. Okay, number 9 is rockets. Mr. Roten, I think you're just messing with us now. The last one, thank goodness, is woodblock printing. We talked about this back when I hosted the notes on the Reformation, so we know Europe had printing, but do you think China had it first? Oh, here comes the answers. I'm so excited. That is crazy. You're not lying to me, you Mr. Roten? Wow, China was pretty awesome. Now, if you'll excuse me, it is time for lunch. So, I'm just going to put some videos on the next few slides, while I take a break. Enjoy.
Villagers here in Jinhua earn their living by making paper the traditional way, sheet by sheet. Gathering the material they use to make paper is as simple as going into the backyard. The villagers use bamboo, which grows in abundance on these mountainsides. They say it only takes about 1 year for it to grow to this height. Workers cut the bamboo down, dry it, and chop it into chips. Then they steam the chips until they're crumbly and moist. Next, the bamboo is soaked in bleach and ground into a thick mush. Once the mush is white, they grind it again into liquid pulp, perfect for paper. 3 centuries ago, the process took 100 days. Now it takes a week. Once they've suspended the pulp in a vat of water, they use screens to gather a thin layer and then lay the new paper out to drain with one sweeping, elegant motion. This family has been making paper here for 14 generations, nearly 300 years. It's a technique that takes a long time to master. This is not as easy as it seems.
Alright, see if we can get this time around. Nice and deep. Give it some. That's that. It's a little lumpy. How's that? Good? No? part of them that look, and what I can't figure out is how someone came up with this idea in the first place. It requires a very steady hand at this point, otherwise you get lumps. Oh, that's not bad. Good lump. Well, as far as I'm concerned, paper making remains a mystery.
In the beginning, paper wasn't anywhere near as thin as these sheets drying on the wall. In fact, people used the earliest paper to make blankets and clothing accessories. Eventually, the Chinese refined the process and created a smooth, thin material, ideal for writing. Chinese officials in court rituals faced the emperor just as the other stars faced the North Star. So they built their imperial palaces with the throne room facing south. From the palace to the sprawling empire at its feet, imperials like Kaifeng were built on a precise north-south axis. The ancient Chinese invented something to guide them in finding north-south lines, the magnetic compass.
Originally, compasses pointed not north, but south, and the original compasses looked like this. By the 4th century BC, Chinese alchemists had discovered the properties of lodestone, a naturally occurring magnetic material which, if left free to spin, would align itself with the Earth's magnetic field.
These early compasses were called south pointers because the spoon-shaped lodestone always pointed south.
Many of the earliest uses were largely astrological. Diviners would use the south pointer to find an auspicious spot for a divination or a burial. Town planners would use the lodestone to find a north-south axis for imperial cities, such as this one.
Compasses were used exclusively on land until the middle of the Song dynasty, when the Chinese began exploring the world by sea. Chinese sailors found the compass indispensable on water. By the 12th century, large fleets of Chinese junks were roaming the earth as far as Africa.
Before it could be used on a ship, the south pointer needed a little finessing. It'll work fine on a perfectly calm day, but with a little wind or a little bucking of the deck, it'll swing around wildly and it's next to useless. Now at some point, someone figured out that you can use a lodestone to magnetize a plain, ordinary piece of iron. If you take an iron needle, rub it with a magnet, behave exactly as a lodestone would. If you then stick that needle through a piece of bamboo, float it in a bowl of water, you have, in effect, a modern compass. It will align itself north to south. Now, it might not look like much, but with this, you don't need the sun and the stars. No matter how dark and stormy the night, no matter how bad the weather, you can always find your way home.
These rockets used a non-explosive gunpowder which simply propelled the arrows forward. Although they didn't explode, they did enough to stun and amaze the emperor's enemies. By the mid-14th century, the Chinese found a way to make the rocket launcher itself fly. They developed a rocket called Fire Dragon issuing from the water. The Dragon was a bamboo tube with a carved wooden head about 5 feet long. The rockets at its front and rear contained gunpowder that propelled the Dragon forward. Just before the rockets burnt out, they ignited fuses of arrow rockets hidden in the Dragon's belly, which then shot out of its mouth, destroying the enemy. It's an ironic twist that gunpowder was created to give eternal life. The legacy of gunpowder remains a blessing and a curse.